Well,
But there is some things that we could do to make it even better than it is now, if you can imagine that, when it comes to stemming the tide of migrants coming from the Northern Triangle countries. Basically, what we need to do is send some more of your money to fund shovel-ready projects in Tegucigalpa and promote female empowerment. That's basically the last piece of the puzzle here.
The second announcement I am pleased to make today is the launch of a new phase of our public-private partnership, which we have named Central America Forward. This includes a new series of U.S. government commitments to complement and support the investments from the private sector. Specifically, one, we will facilitate infrastructure projects in the northern area of Central America. For example, we will help to identify clean energy projects, something that we're excited about around the world, but in this particular region where we know we can have great impact.
Yep, can't set up enough charging stations in San Salvador. No question about it. This is good stuff. You didn't hear the female empowerment part, but prior to that, she went through her principles that provide the parameters for her policy making. And one of them, obviously, is good governance. That's her hallmark. And part of good governance is female empowerment. It's a hemispheric problem, and she's tackling it for us. Doing a wonderful job. It's going very, very, very well. And that's got to be welcome news to big city mayors like Triple Threat here and Eric Adams in New York, because that means that they won't be, quote unquote, inundated by migrants for much longer. At least not if you get Kamala her money and female empowerment. For more on this, pleased to be joined by Emma Jo Morris. She's the politics editor at Breitbart News. Emma, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, good morning. I'm so glad that Kamala Harris is sending female empowerment to the Northern Triangle countries. God knows they need it with all of their males having evacuated to the United States. So
Yeah,
good
yeah,
point.
Good.
Yep.
Yeah, sure. It's exactly. They need to be empowered to go find them. All right, so Emma Jo, you were.
it's going to be a country full of girl bosses running that place.
Boy, okay, I'm crossing those three countries off my list. So you were embedded with the migrant folk, the migrants that were bussed up to New York City recently.
I like that word for what I did. I don't know if I would, if it entailed everything that word implies. I live in New York City. I live in Brooklyn, so I went up.
Yeah, we
to,
can tell we heard the
I
siren. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was thinking, actually, as I was thinking, I was like, wow, this is very on brand. But yeah, so, I went out. I actually used to live in the neighborhood where this hotel is, the Watson, where they had put up a group of migrants to stay there because they didn't have a shelter for them or something. And then they tried to move them out because it's a real hotel. They can't just live there. And they tried to move them to a shelter that's kind of like an outdoor tent city thing. And naturally, it's, freezing out. So the guys were just like, no, I'm not going. And they protested outside, demanding things like permanent housing, or at least to stay at this hotel, the Watson Hotel. It's a 3-star hotel on 57th and 10th. It's right in Midtown. It's right where the tourists are, near it's walking distance from Times Square. And they just said, you know what, actually, no, we're not going anywhere, and just posted up outside. So I went in and just kind of hung out there for a couple hours and went to go scope out what's going on. And it was horrific.
Well, what did you see?
Basically, there have been a lot of photos and reports on this online. Basically, what it was, I wrote a first person about this on Breitbart.com. It was so there's scaffolding outside the Watson. So they were using the scaffolding as kind of like a roof overhead, and they were basically just maybe about 50 men were kind of lined up along the wall of the Watson, wrapped in blankets. Some people were laying on the ground and sitting on the ground. Some people were just kind of standing around, listening to music, smoking cigarettes. I described it as a block party in my headline. It was something like that. It was, I guess that's one way to describe it. That was kind of the scene. It was like a lot of chilling, a lot of just like standing around. Some signs were there, obviously made by activists, and I know that because the signs were in English. When you try to talk to these people, they do not speak a word of English. Nobody speaks a word of English. But yeah, so there were these guys kind of sitting around. They had signs up saying, give them work permits now, permanent housing, basically signs of just like demands of the city. And so I began talking to some of these guys, and the way that I communicated with them was through Google Translate on my phone. So there's dictation, so you can just kind of talk into the phone, and it translates it into Spanish right away. And then they were replying to me the same way. So we were talking, and I started asking people, like, why are you here? What are you expecting out of this? And it was a common refrain, which was basically, the city is offering us outdoor accommodations. They're not really, one man said it's not suitable. We are cold. There's not enough bathrooms. People are on top of each other. There's too many people. There's not enough beds. And they were basically just griping. One man also pointed out how, the homeless shelters are basically like open air asylums, where you have people who are shooting up heroin, who are clearly mentally ill. There's a lot of violence, a lot of fights breaking out. And that was the story. And, it's weird to be in that position, especially as a conservative, which I am, an outspoken one. And I don't believe in illegal immigration. I think it's a horrible violation of our sovereignty, of our law. I think we should have a wall, all of that. And you're standing there, and it's a really weird kind of experience, because on the one hand, you don't blame them for coming here and expecting to be given a room at the Watson to live in indefinitely, because you have this government that's kind of said, on the federal level, that we are a humane government, and
right.
Everybody can just kind of come and file your complaints with your country and stay here. And then you have the local government that's calling it a sanctuary city, which obviously implies something like that you're welcome here.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you won't be deported.
And so, and these people come from places that I wouldn't want to live in. So, you're kind of having this weird experience that I try to express in the piece, where on the one hand, it's like, okay, if I'm them, I don't blame them, I guess. But then on the other hand, like the city, like, the ire, I think, for me, went toward the government and toward the city. And I tried to express that in like kind of the subtext of my piece, where it's like, why did you make this entitlement?
Right.
Because now you're in a position where you can't take it away, as all entitlements work.
They were incentivized.
Whether you apply them to illegals or to citizens, right? But they put them in the Watson.
Well, they were incentivized by our country to come here, and when they're turning down free stuff, I'm starting to think that their hardships might have been greatly exaggerated, because we're paying for this.
Well, that's it. It's I don't even, like, I wouldn't go that far. Like, I think that the hardships are for real. I just think that they have no concept of this country and the fact that money doesn't grow on trees just because you're in the United States. So they have I think that that's not even a thought that crosses their mind. I didn't bring it up to them. I think that that's, again, the responsibility of leaders to say, like, wait a second, this is costing $4 billion in the case of New York. We do not have this money. We do not have anywhere to put these people. And there's no message that's being broadcast, A, to the Biden administration, B, on the media, to the public, to say, like, hey, no more. We can't accept these buses. We can't accept these people, and then, turning the screws on the Biden administration to really close the border for real. That's not happening. What's happening is you have Mayor Adams coming and saying, oh, we need a decompression strategy in scare quotes, which really means what he's asking for is to disperse migrants more evenly across the country, which is just outrageous.
Or
it's like, also close the border.
Or up into Canada. Well, this is a classic case where this was just a beautiful lie I was telling. This was just a position I was taking to sound tolerant. I never thought I would have to actually man the post, and so it's surprising when the consequences are visited upon them. But I did want to know, at what point did the residents of Long Island intercede and say, you can stay with us at our places? Like up in the Hamptons,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Right.
When did that happen?
Because I want to know, Mayor Adams went and slept at one of the tents 2 nights ago. And I said, like, wait a second, that's fun and cool and all, but when are you putting some of these guys in Gracie Mansion? They are telling you that they're cold.
Right. Not to mention, hey, Mayor, hey, Mayor, get out of my tent. You're taking up a space.
Right, well, that's even taking up a bed. Not that. It's true. And it's, this whole thing is just, it's like the traveling circus of misery, and that's really what this is. This is the second first-person piece that I did in what is now kind of almost becoming like a series, because I got a tip when the first bus came from Texas to New York, and I went to go see it, and there was really nothing much to see, I realized when I got there. Like, these guys basically showed up, got off the bus, and were, like, let loose. And so I wanted a story, so I ended up peeling one of the migrants off the bus and taking him out for breakfast so we could talk and I could interview him. Mm-hmm. And it turned into kind of this whole day with this guy, and you realize, how ill-equipped the government and the city are to accept these people who they've offered quote-unquote sanctuary to. And again, like, you realize this is like, I think in the first piece I used this word, the line barbarism by bureaucracy, where it really is, it's like, there is no concept of what's going on the ground, and that is increasingly true in New York. I don't know about Chicago, but I know New York, and I live here, and I've lived here for years. And what I'm seeing is you have this almost like medieval kind of society where it's like you have the limousine class in Tribeca, in Uptown, in certain areas in Brooklyn where it's just extremely posh, and then you have everybody else who is living hand to mouth, who is dealing with rat-infested, roach-infested, strewn with vagrants and heroin addict streets. And there is absolutely no overlap between those two worlds in this city, where you have some people who are actually the ones making decisions, making political decisions, the ones with the resources and the power in this city, and who have their hands on the levers, who have no concept of the ramifications of their decision-making and have no concept of what life is actually like on the ground, because they are just so far removed. It has nothing to do with their reality. And then you have everybody else who's living the consequences of that. And this is really a microcosm of that, where it's like, yeah, we're a sanctuary city. Doesn't that feel good to say? Now I'm going to go on Jimmy Kimmel. And then when you actually experience that, it's horrific. It's horrific for everybody involved. That neighborhood has been turned into a war zone. It's unrecognizable from when I lived there. And the migrants are getting shafted too.
Yeah.
So, this is a disaster. This is an unmitigated disaster. There's no words to describe how crazy this is. It's just crazy. It's literally like a lunatic is running our political system.
There's a lot of those in big cities around the country. Before we let you go, I just wanted to make sure you heard the word, since you broke the story about Hunter Biden's laptop, the laptop that is, in fact, Hunter Biden's laptop, just so you know. Yeah.
What a self-own that was.
Yeah.
These guys are writing to the DOJ, and they're like, you have to do a criminal probe into this situation with the laptop because it was stolen from Hunter. But nobody had ever admitted that. The Bidens hadn't admitted that. And it's funny because it'd be one thing if they were like, okay, let's cut our losses. We're going to get a criminal probe. We have to just give it up and admit that this is Hunter's. But the DOJ has so much exposure in this that they cannot go there. They cannot go there. The reason why the laptop in the first place was given to me was because the person who originally had the laptop, John Paul MacIsaac, the owner of the Delaware repair shop where it was originally dropped off by Hunter Biden, he suspected that the FBI was sitting on it and burying it, which they were. And we have copious amounts of evidence to show that they were. They knew exactly what this was, and instead of investigating it, they went to big tech companies to warn them to hide it when it would be eventually reported on. So the DOJ is not going to take them up on this demand because the DOJ would have to investigate itself in that criminal probe. This was just hilarious.
It's weird because you would think somebody that has found so much success in the energy sector, is such a private equity guru, would have more attention to detail, would be a better strategic thinker.
Yeah.
So it's really surprising. Very surprising.
Yeah, shocker.
Emma Jo Morris, politics editor at Breitbart, Breitbart.com. Emma Jo, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Later.
Thank you. And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Folks, when shopping for a home mortgage, how much is great service, low closing costs, and competitive interest rates worth to you? At Townstone Financial, it's priceless. Hi, Barry Sterner, founder of Townstone Financial. Let's hear about the Townstone experience from one of our customers.
My experience with Zach in Townstone was unbelievable. It was stress-free. That's like unheard of when purchasing a home. He informed me in the very beginning what I should expect, how long the process would ultimately be. He kind of held my hand the whole way. It was seamless. It was effortless. I never felt as though I was going into the next phase of the process blindly. Use Townstone. Ask for Zach Short.
Remember, nobody